I've always loved singing, but the fear of judgment has often been stronger than the joy. I was taking online singing lessons, but I constantly worry, what if my neighbors hear me? And after a 1.5 year break, I signed up for group classes, but ended up skipping half of them as well. Now there's an audition coming up for a local choir, and whilst I was really excited at first, I can already feel myself wanting to run away again. I want to sing, I really do, but I keep struggling with fear and resistance. Has anyone else been through this and found a way forward? I saw this post the other day and I just thought this happens to so many of us. Sometimes our biggest problem with singing isn't how good our voice is or even how good our technique is, but instead it's the fear that's going on inside our minds. Sometimes it's the fear of judgment, sometimes it's the fear of failure. And it can get so bad that it ends up preventing us from doing the very thing that we want to do, which is sing. So let's tackle this today and let's help you find a way forward. Today, I want to share with you 3 key tools and ideas that have helped me personally and are things that I share with my students all the time. The first 2 are more quick tools that you can just use, but I've also saved a very juicy one at the end of the video. So make sure you stay right till the end. Now, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ivan. I'm a voice teacher who works with students from all around the world over Zoom. And really on this channel, my goal is to make learning how to sing as simple and as easy as possible. So there's a mixture of, technique things, but also things like this, which is more on the mindset side of things as well. So if that is up your lane, consider subscribing wherever you're joining me from. If you're interested in improving your voice quicker with less of the hassle, I've got some links down in the description on how you can work with me privately. I do private lessons over Zoom and also some self-study programs that you can work through at your own pace. If you want to inspire our next episode, also let me know down in the comments of what you want me to talk about next. Anyway, let's dive in. So the first key tool and idea here is realize that fear is part of the process. So over the past few years, I made the decision to busk every Friday. And by busking, I mean I would go out to the streets and perform. Most times it's with friends, sometimes it's on my own. You know what's interesting? Most of the week, leading up to that Friday session, I'd be feeling pretty chill. I'd be feeling pretty calm. But always around, 1 to 2 hours before I have to head out and go busk, my mind will start to come up with all these stories, all these reasons on why I shouldn't go. What if people think I'm bad? Or, my voice is feeling a bit tired, I'm feeling a bit dry today. Maybe I shouldn't go out. It's probably not going to work. Or maybe, hey, the weather isn't looking so good today. Now, this one is valid because sometimes it has rained on us when we're performing, which is not really good for our equipment. But you know what? Because it's happened so much to me, it's become predictable. And it's made me realize that, these thoughts, these reactions, these emotions are simply part of our process. And I always come back to this fact. Your brain is trying to protect you. And so at times it'll come up with these thoughts or emotions that stem from fear in order to protect you. Now, the cool thing here is that I realized I don't have to listen to these thoughts and these emotions. I can simply just notice them, feel them, and allow them to pass. And most importantly, I don't need to make a decision based off this, especially that decision to show up, that decision to not quit. And so for someone who is feeling this fear of judgment, this fear of failure, use this tool as a reframe and just acknowledge that these emotions, this fear is just part of the process. Now, another key tool or reframe that has really helped me is realizing that fear sometimes is a really good thing. Because beyond it being part of the process, I think fear can be an incredible tool. Sometimes I would think of it as almost like a personal assistant. Let me explain. Fear keeps you in check. It allows you to notice things that could go wrong and allows you to proactively plan for things so that it won't happen. Now, to give you an example, oftentimes I would feel particularly nervous or fearful of a certain song, only to realize that it's the song that I had rehearsed the least. Of all the songs, that was the one that I'd spent the least amount of time on. And so what that usually tells me is that I need to kind of double down on that song for the next week, which means the following week when I go perform, I'm in a good spot. Now, fear can also be a good thing because it can point you in the right direction. As an example, I mentioned before, most weeks when I'm busking, I will be performing with a friend. We'll kind of just take turns kind of singing songs and we'll just have a good time. But sometimes my friend can't show up and it's just me. Now, this still scares me, especially when I've gotten used to performing with a friend, or maybe, I've just come back from holiday and I haven't been performing for a couple of weeks. And the same old stories and emotions will come up. What if I just suck? Or what if people don't like it? What if people don't like my voice? Now, what's really helped me is just realizing that this fear is just a compass for me. the more I'm scared of going out to perform on my own, the more I needed to go and actually do it. And what's really cool is every time I've listened to that fear and used it as a compass, I've always come out of that experience feeling a lot better, and I don't regret facing that fear. Anyway, those are the two reframes. Let's get to the real juicy bit, because reframes can be incredibly powerful because they get you to see a situation in a completely new light, such that ultimately you still show up and you still go do the thing. In this case, going out and performing and singing and doing that thing. But really, over the long term, what I think is even more powerful than some of these reframes is building this idea of self-efficacy. What does this mean? According to one source, self-efficacy is a person's belief in their ability to complete a task or achieve a goal. Basically, do you believe you can do the thing that you want to do? Now, there are probably many ways to build this idea of self-efficacy. I'm sure people out on the internet can provide better advice than me. But one thing that I found to be really personally useful is to collect irrefutable evidence that you can do it. Which means if you don't believe you can do something like sing and perform in front of people, but then you go out and you just force yourself to do it 100 times, 1,000 times, maybe 10,000 times. At some point, you'll start to collect enough evidence where your brain starts to go, maybe I can do this. I mean, think of it this way. Most of you probably won't bat an eye when it comes to, walking, when it comes to speaking, simply because you've done it so many times. You've collected so much irrefutable evidence that you're like, of course I can do this, right? The same thing can apply when it comes to learning to sing in front of people, performing in front of an audience. When you collect enough evidence that you can do it, though initially you might not believe in yourself, this is how you can start to build self-efficacy. Now, of course, the downside to this is this takes time. So until then, until you feel a bit of that self-efficacy, please use the first two reframes. Fear is a normal part of the process. Fear is a good thing to allow you to continually show up to those moments, even when it feels hard, especially if singing is something you truly love and want to pursue. Anyway, I really hope this has served you and has helped. This has really personally benefited me and some of the students that I've been working with. If it was useful, all I ask is please leave a 5-star for this podcast. If you're interested in working with me, as I said, links down in the description. Apart from that, my name is Ivan. I'm your voice teacher. I will see you next week. Take care.